The column tool has been upgraded considerably in version 10 also. So if I left mouse click on it in the info box, all default settings fill in, and as I come along the info box, I'm just going to go over inserting beams first. So the first icon is a simple insertion point, so if I left mouse click on the floor plan, it just places a column from the middle. So if I want to change that, I can open the dialog box by double clicking on either icon and change the insert point by this little dialog here. So if I want it from the bottom left hand corner, I click there and place it like that, and I'll just do one from the top right hand corner as well. And if I wanted to insert it on an angle, let's say all your beams are at 15 degrees, I just push OK there, and they all get inserted at 15 degrees. The next method is, I'll just uncheck that first, put that back to 0, put that back to the center, push OK. The next method is the rotated angle. So first of all, I'll left mouse click on the floor plan, and we can see that it's placed it, or it's anchored the column, but depending on the angle that I move my mouse to, that's the angle that it will be placed. Luckily we have smart guides as well now, so if I hold the shift key down, I can constrain it to certain angles if I want, but if I put the tracker on, we can actually see the angle that the beam is going to be put on. So let's say I want it at 30 degrees, I just left mouse click again and it gets placed. The last method of placing a beam is the revolve method, and this is actually greyed out at the moment. To make that active, we have to drill down into the column palette and change it to an angled or tilting column and change it to a complex profile. As soon as we push OK now, that becomes available. And this method provides a three-step placement process. So first of all, you click to place the column, second you rotate it around its own vertical axis and click, and then third you revolve it around its own axis and then you click it to complete it. So we can see that the crosshairs are displayed differently, and if I might just angle that a little bit, change that to 80. And that's the effect that has. I'm just going to delete all these and move on. So if I double click on the column tool, open the default settings palette, and under geometry and positioning we can define the column we're about to create. At the moment the column height is 3 meters, that's from the bottom to the top, the same way the walls is dimensions. Over here we have the relative base height, and this defines the distance that the wall sits above the current story. And then the next one down, we have the absolute base height, which is how high this wall is above project 0. This is where we can define the angle that we place a column on the floor plan, in case you don't want it perpendicular to your workspace over here. Then over here we have 3 types of columns. We have square or rectangular, circular, and a special profile, which is new to version 10. If I just stick with the rectangular method, the dialog boxes on the right hand side here allow us to define the dimensions on floor plan of the column. At the moment it's a square column. If I uncheck the links, it can be a rectangular column. And then the next one, the circular column, if I click on the circular column, only one of those boxes is highlighted, the other one is greyed out. So if I click back onto the rectangular profile, we can also have the material either wrapping around the column or allow the column to be freestanding. For the column to be wrapped around by the wall, it must be a composite material, because a single skin won't wrap around both sides of the column. Just to show you what I mean by that, I'll start with just a rectangular column, and with no wrapping, push OK, and I place that on the floor plan. We can see that the composite hasn't wrapped around the column. Now I'm going to wrap it so that wall will wrap around that column. We can see the effect there. Now if I put a veneer as well around it, I can put a veneer with no wrapping. That's the effect that that has. And finally I can place a column that has a veneer into a composite wall, and the skin in the composite wall will wrap around the column and the veneer. So if I just do that and I place one in there, that's the effect that it has. One thing I didn't do just then is designate or define the thickness of that veneer. So if I just go back to the column tool and next to the veneer tick box, I can change the thickness of the veneer there, and that veneer is a uniform thickness all the way around that column. Next we can have a vertical or slanted column, and this is new for version 10, which is a lot of fun. Now I'm just going to go down to the floor plan and section and collapse that, and then drag this out and collapse the cross parameters and go to core structure. Under core structure, this is the fill that we've used for our column, and I can change that to any fill that I like. And under the cut surfaces, here we define the core fill pens and the background pens. And for the veneers, we also define the veneer pens and the fills, and there's a fair bit of control over there over how your column will look. Under outlines, we can define the uncut line, the overhead lines and overhead lines. And finally, the crosshair parameters. So we can actually choose to mark the column by just a straight cross, a slash, plane, or have a crosshair there. And the distance, when it's a crosshair, we can choose the distance from the center of the column or the length on the outside of the beam, and the column cross line pen. So we've got a lot of control there as well, and those options change as we change what we actually are using. So as I collapse that and collapse that, if I go to the model, here's the material. Once again, you can choose any material that you've made or already listed in ArchiCAD, and we can also list and label every column. So the layer that we're on is on the structural bearing layer, and as I push OK, we're all done there. Another thing I'd like to explore is the new function in ArchiCAD 10 of the inclined or slanted column. So if I grab the column here, we can see it's just a straight square column. It's 3 meters high and it's 350 millimeters wide by a meter. And then over here we can see that it's a vertical column, and if I want to slant it, I can just click on this icon here. Conversely, I can go to the original column icon, and over here I've got those same functions. So if I wanted to change the degree or the pitch of the slant, I can just change it there. So we can see that's updated straight away. If I wanted to change the angle of this in the floor plan, I click on the middle node and click on the second last icon here, and over here I can rotate it in any direction that I like. One thing that's worth noting is that the column will rotate on its own axis, so it's intelligent enough to know that it can only slant in one direction. It's almost like there's headlights on the front of the beam and always knows which way is ahead. And if I wanted to drag it out, I wanted to line it up with a slab, I can line it up visually like that, or I can actually get it to snap to. It's probably easier to do from the 3D window, which we'll go into just in a second. If I wanted to further edit that, I'll just take this out so it's inclined a little bit more, and then if we have a look at the pitch, at the moment it's 50.99 degrees, and if I want to make the beam shorter, or taller, I can just select the last icon in the pet palette, and we'll probably find now that the beam is now 1849. Now of course this can be edited in this toolbox as well, so if I just make that 3 meters again, and I can change the pitch of it also here and the size at any time. But if I go to the elevation window, we can see we have the same functions in the elevation window. So if I select it there, the first icon lets me change the height of that in a vertical plane, and the second icon lets me extend that along the plane or along the inclination path of the beam. Over there my section line runs out over there, so I might just drag that back a little and move that up, straight up. So as you can see, we can edit that in floor plan, elevation, through the tool palettes and the 3D window, which we will jump to now. Now I just wanted to go over the options for editing columns in the 3D window. So if we select the column, this is a complex profile and it's on an angle at the moment, and as we can see it's 3 meters high. So if I click on the center node, I have 3 options across the top. First one is I can change the angle, so we can see the hairline rotating along the line that as I try and change the angle of the beam going the opposite direction. But if I hold the shift key down, it will stay perpendicular to where it was. So over here we notice that the height isn't changing, but it's being changed on that plane, so it's actually sticking to that 3 meter high plane. And if I select the next node down, it's now editing that or moving that on a vertical plane. We can see it's going up and down that wall, and I don't have to hold the shift key down for that, and I can even make it taller than 3 meters. The final option is I can extend it along the path of the inclination. So if I want to take that, for example, up to this node here again, the little tick will come up and we'll see that's rising to a height of 3 meters. So if I deselect it, we can see how that's now 3 meters. So the 3 options are basically if we move it along a certain height, which is the 3 meters there. The other option is up and down in a vertical plane. Here we've got the height a little bit different. It's 1925 now. And the third option is stretching it along that inclination. So they're the 3 options. When we click on the corner nodes of a column, the first tool allows us to extend or reduce the height of the column along the inclination. As you can see there, it's now 2 meters 217. If I take that back up to the 3 meter mark. Secondly, this allows us to extend the profile sideways or longways. At the moment this is not responding because it hasn't been set up with any vertical or horizontal stretch options. To do that, I'm going to have to change this column to perhaps a square column. Here we have a couple more tools. These are the 2 that weren't available in the custom setting. So over here once again I can extend or reduce the height of it along the inclination of the column. Secondly, it allows me to rotate along its axis. So if I wanted to rotate the beam, we can see it's 350 by 1 meter wide. If I undo that, we can see it's still 350 by 1 meter, which means I've just rotated. I haven't changed the column physically. Thirdly, I can extend the width of the column. If I undo that, and I can also extend the length of it. Now if the tracker bar palette is there, I can actually type in that distance. That's running just off the screen there. I can type in the distance that I would like to extend it. In this case I won't. So they're basically the options for editing a column in 3D. So we can see that some of the tools have identical functions between the center node and the corner node. However, it's worth taking note of these differences in case you're trying to click on the wrong node to complete some sort of function. All the icons along the bottom row are similar to other icons that are common throughout the rest of ArchiCAD, so I won't bother going over those in this particular part of the DVD. There's a detailed section on making complex profile beams, columns and walls in another movie on this DVD, but I'm just going to quickly go over making a column that's a complex profile. So if I go onto the column there and I select this icon here, this is where we actually select our custom profile, and there's a bunch of them already in there, but to create a new one to place in there, I have to go to the Design, Complex Profiles, Profile Manager. Now, once the Profile Manager opens up, we can choose to make a wall, beam or column. So I'm going to uncheck those, just going to make a column. So I check New, and then this little palette comes up here. I can make any shape that I like as long as it's made out of the fill. So on the drafting layer, I might use some lines, and this is explained in another movie. Might use some lines just to create a quick oval, and then I'm going to select that and drag that into the center, because I want the point of origin to be from the center of that fill. Now I might just draw a little circle and grab that and make a copy of that. And then I'll just trim that and that bit, trim that bit, trim that bit, and then I'm going to grab the fill tool, hold my space bar down and click on that. Now that's the profile I want to keep. Now I just want to store that profile as oval less. Okay, so store the new profile, and then I can get out of there. Now as soon as I've done that, I can go to my column tool and select from the custom profile oval less. So as soon as I go OK, I can actually place that column. It's actually inclined at the moment, which I don't want at this stage, so I'm going to change it to a vertical column, and there's my column there. So if I actually select that, I can turn the fills off, of course, but we can see the hairlines are straight through the center, which is what I was trying to do. Then if I push F4 on the Mac and F5 on the PC to go to my 3D window, we can see there's my custom column. It's a very simple tool to use. As well as all the columns that we can create using the column tool, there are many more to be found under the object tool or in the ArchiCAD library. So if I click on the object tool and check find library parts and type in column and press the find button, we have many columns that are in the library also, and these are all parametric as well, and they are probably columns that would be difficult to create using the regular column tool. So there are many there to look through as well, and it's worth checking these out as well.